Hello and welcome back for another standard video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Esper Reanimator deck. It's a mid-range creature deck that is trying to dump some cheap creatures into the graveyard and then bring them back either with Likeness Looter, Helping Hand, or Emptiness. And then using a combination of a wide board, flying, and some large creatures, we're hoping to beat our opponents with combat damage. At 1 mana, we have Moonshadow. This 7/7 menace creature enters with 6 -1/-1 counters on it, and then whenever one or more permanent cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere, we get to remove a -1 counter from it. So over the course of the game, we expect this to scale up into the 7/7, and then it has the built-in evasion of menace, making it more difficult to interact with for our opponents. Next up, we have cards to get creatures into our graveyard so that we can reanimate them. First up is Iron Shield Elf, a 2-mana 3/1 that states we can discard a card, and then the Shield Elf gets indestructible until end of turn, and we have to tap it. This can be a great chump blocker for our opponent's creatures. Also allows us to scale Moonshadow at instant speed, and can dump our reanimation targets into the graveyard. Souls of the Lost, also 2 mana, has an additional casting cost of discarding a card or sacrificing a permanent, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of permanent cards in our graveyard, and its toughness is that number +1. So a great scaling threat as the game goes on. Also not a bad top deck later in the game after we already have a full graveyard. Likeness Looter, a 2-mana 1/1 with flying. We can tap it to loot a card, hoping to dump out some of our reanimation targets. And then for X mana, the Likeness Looter becomes a copy of target creature in our graveyard, and it maintains this ability so we can turn it into something else later in the game if we want to. One great target for this effect is the Moonshadow. Since the Likeness Looter is already in play, when we pay 1, it will just turn into a 7/7 flying creature, and it won't have the -1 counters on it. Additionally, on turn 2, we can play out the Likeness Looter, and then on turn 3, we can discard the Oculus and transform it all in the same turn, which provides for a very powerful start. Then the last 2-mana card we have to fill our graveyard is Overlord of the Balemurk, which we can impend for 2 mana. When it enters or attacks, we get to mill 4 cards, and then return a non-avatar creature card from our graveyard to our hand. The cards milled will trigger the Moonshadow, and it also fills our graveyard for cards like Souls of the Lost. Bloodghast, a 2-mana 2/1 that can't block and gains haste if our opponent has 10 or less life. This is a wonderful card to mill over with Overlord. It's great to discard to Shield Elf, sacrifice or discard for souls, and similar for Likeness Looter if we don't have anything else we want to dump out of our hand, because it has landfall, and whenever a land we control enters, we get to return it from our graveyard to the battlefield, so we actively want to discard it to bring it back for free. At 3 mana, we have the Abhorrent Oculus, a 5/5 with flying, which normally we would have to exile 6 cards from our graveyard in order to cast from our hand, which is why we're trying to cheat it into play. With this deck, it's also not unreasonable to hardcast this naturally, although it is the slower method. An Oculus states that at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, we get to manifest Dread, which means we look at the top 2 cards of our library, and then we can put one onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and if it is a creature, we can turn it face up for its mana value. Works very well with the Moonshadow. Again, since the Moonshadow is already in play when we turn it face up, it's not going to get the -1 counters. Additionally, if we do have a Moonshadow in play, since the card that's not selected is going to the graveyard, as long as it's a permanent, it will grow the Moonshadow, and we don't mind hitting other Oculus with this effect as well, as it gets around the casting cost. Twilight Diviner, a 3-mana 3/3, that when it enters we get to Surveil 2, filling our graveyard, and then it states that whenever 1 or more creatures enter, if they entered from the graveyard, we get to create a token that's a copy of them, but this only triggers once each turn. So when we're returning things like Bloodghast, or we're using one of our reanimate spells that we'll touch on in a second, then we can create an additional copy of the creature for added value. For our reanimation spells, we're playing Helping Hand, which can return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. This hits everything except for the Overlord and the Emptiness, and the Emptiness has a similar effect. This 6-mana 3/5 states that when we cast it, If white was paid in the casting cost, we get to return a creature card with mana value 3 or less to the battlefield. And if black was spent in the casting cost, we get to put 3 -1 counters on a target creature. And it also has Evoke, which can be paid with either black or white. So we can use this effect as early as turn 2. For the mana base, we're playing a single copy of Plains and Island and 2 copies of Swamp. These are our fetchables for the Fabled Passage. Then we have the full play set of Concealed Courtyard and Godless Shrine as black-white dual lands, 4 copies of Watery Grave as a black-blue dual land, the 4 copies of Fabled Passage used to grow the Moonshadow, and additionally they act as additional landfalls for the Bloodghast if needed. And lastly, there's 4 copies of Starting Town for mana fixing, since we are a 3-color deck that's looking to play black and white pip cards as well as splashing blue. Based on the way the deck is constructed, I'm expecting us to dump out a handful of Moonshadows early in the game and cause quite a bit of trouble for our opponents. Notably, this deck should also be very good against the other reanimation decks in the format right now, as when they use Kavero to try and wipe the board, we should already have a lot of creatures in our graveyard that can be returned. So our opponent's going to either need graveyard hate or they're going to have to pick their timing very carefully. This will be my first time using Moonshadow, so I'm very excited to see how it plays out.
Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games.
This hand is good. We'll keep. And then, unfortunately, I think on turn 1, we're going to need to... Well, let's see here. We could play out the Moonshadow. Then we could use Fabled Passage next turn to get the Likeness Looter going, or we could play out the Shield Elf. We'll see what our opponent does. Black land. I think we'll get the Elf going. And then we can discard the Oculus right away. Hit for 2. Demir from our opponent, and they have a Tithing Blade. We'll get rid of the Moonshadow here. Naturally draw into our blue land, so we can play out the Looter. And then we won't copy yet. If it survives till next turn, we might want to get the Oculus. Tapping it down is fine. So they want to target the Shield Elf here. That's a mistake. So we'll transform into the Oculus, play out a Fabled Passage, and then we can swing in with the Shield Elf. Opponent blocks, we'll give Indestructible, and I think we'll do the Watery Grave. That way we still have double white. Two lands here. Vestige warped in. We'll see what they put into play. Dauntless Scrapbox. Pretty good against us. Not the best in the current situation though. So we'll play out the Moonshadow. Hit with everything. Opponent goes down to 5, and then we'll pass the turn. We can either take the Emptiness or the Helping Hand. I think we actually put the Helping Hand under. We're not expecting to get up to 6 mana, and this grows the Moonshadow. Opponent needs a board wipe. But even at that, we can give the Shield Elf Indestructible. Don Leo, not the most useful here. They'll exile the Tithing Blade, maybe the Scrap Bot. This will grow our Moonshadow again. And we'll get rid of the land. And that's enough to make our opponent concede. We were going to win in the air. Good game. This hand is okay. We'll keep. Storm Chaser's talent from our opponent. Could be the Prowess deck, could be Lessons. We'll find out. Second talent. They also have a Fountain Port. So our opponent has a good aggressive start here. And they hold back both. That's fine with us. We'll play out the elf. Can attack in here. They're going to sacrifice both of their otters. Fine with us. So we'll discard our 2 Bloodghast. Grow the Moonshadow. Pass the turn. They shock in Steam Vents. 3 mana. And they play out a Monument. They're going to be in quite a bit of trouble here. Should have played out the Overlord first. We'll shock this in. Bring back a couple Bloodghast. And then we'll play the Overlord. Try and find a Moonshadow. We do find one. We'll play it out. Hit for 7. We have lethal on board, so our opponent needs to do something powerful this turn. Burn spells are not likely to do it. We can discard the Emptiness here. That will save our Elf and Moonshadow. Killing the Bloodghast grows both Moonshadows as well. And our opponent concedes. Good game. This hand is on the fair side. Start off with a Watery Grave tapped. Up against the blue deck. We can either get Overlord going, or we can play out one of the Bloodghast. I think we'll try Overlord. Try and fix our hand. Likeness Loot are our only option. And a Grand. So is this the Lessons deck? Are they using Grand to discount for a different reason? Here we can play out a Moonshadow, then the Looter. Pass the turn. So far, only islands from our opponent. And there's the Monument. So it could be mono blue Lessons. They make a treasure here. I don't think we can block. They do make one, so we'll just take the damage. Don't want to lose both of our creatures. Does look like they have some interaction here. And they Boomerang Basics to Moonshadow. That's fine with us. So let's see. We need 3 mana. Just trying to figure out the best order to do this in. Maybe we can't get a Diviner into play this turn. We'll just play out the Moonshadows. Draw and discard. Can get rid of the Diviner here. That's probably fine. Then we'll shock in, and we'll discard one of the Bloodghast for souls. Pass the turn. Accumulate wisdom, draws 3. They have 2 mana showing right now. Love to draw into a land card. Second Monument is going to be strong. Opponent is building up towards their endgame when they just burn us out in a turn or 2. We haven't been able to put any pressure on our opponent. Discard the Oculus here. Transform into the Oculus. Hit for 8. And we'll put another Oculus, I guess, as the face down card. Fabled Passage will grow the Moonshadows. Opponent is dead on board. They need to make their move now. Either take out one of the Moonshadows, bounce it, bounce an Oculus. They definitely have the tools in their deck. It's just a matter of whether they draw into them. First appearance of actual red mana. Could have been bottlenecking our opponent this game. Firebending Lesson, take out our Oculus, grows the Moonshadows. Storm Chaser's talent, so now they can at least chump one of the Moonshadows. But between the Oculus and the other one, we're still going to have lethal on board. So we'll play out a Moonshadow here. Souls of the Lost. Discard the Bloodghast in our hand. Grows all 3 shadow. And Wan Chi Tong. This will keep them alive. Attack in with everything. They do need to sacrifice their whole board here. Down to 5. We'll put an Overlord down. This does not grow the Moonshadow. Helping Hand is not a permanent. Leveling up Storm Chaser, not going to be the answer here. Bouncing the Oculus, which is actually a likeness looter. More turn of Bloodcasts and swing for lethal. Can bring back an Oculus. Good game. This hand is fine. We'll keep. Again, we have the choice of leading on the Moonshadow or playing out a looter on 2. I think the Overlord means we'll play out the Moonshadow first. We could always draw into a blue land as well. Stoomboard takes out our Moonshadow. And there's the starting town. So we get the looter anyway. Next turn we can present an Oculus if our opponent doesn't kill the looter. We'll discard the Oculus. We need to play out our land first. Ouch. Here comes the Oculus. See what we hit. Another Oculus is good. Bitter Triumph, discarding a Regent. And they use another one to search up more lands. Let's see. We can play out the Moonshadow first. Fetch with the Fable. I think we'll grab a black land here. Then we can use the Overlord. Return Souls of the Lost. Then we can also helping hand back our Oculus. Hit for 2. Get a looter, grow our Moonshadow. Deadly Cover Up. And they're going to get rid of our Oculus here most likely. They do. So now we have to use the fair beatdown plan. Well, helping hand. Bring back a looter, I think. Can turn this into a Moonshadow right away. And then Souls of the Lost. Discard Bloodghast. Player land tapped. Bring it back. Pass the turn. Have to hope our opponent doesn't have another board wipe here. We were able to rebuild quite nicely. Just a dragon. And a World Wagon. It's going to be 9 power, so can't quite tangle with our souls yet. Don't think it has reach either. So we can attack in with everything. Opponent chump blocks Souls of the Lost. And then no need to play out our Fable here. We can hold it in case they destroy our Bloodghast. It's also discard fodder for the elf if we draw into it. Opponent shocks in and then concedes. Good game. This hand is pretty fair. We're looking for a way to discard this Oculus so that we can use Helping Hand on it. Overlord can also mill over something. I think we'll start on the Godless Shrine tapped. Couple passages from our opponent on green and white. Here we can either try the looter. I think we'll do that first. If it survives, next turn we can discard the Oculus and transform the looter into it all in the same turn. Opponent is on a counter deck. So we'll transform the looter into the Oculus. Put the planes under it. Next turn we can Helping Hand back the other Oculus. Moonshadow as well. And then probably Overlord. So we're looking to have a very big turn. Sheltered by Ghosts, we'll take out our first Oculus. And then they have an Ooze. The Bishop scaling with the counters could be problematic for us. Looks like they didn't put any on it. Maybe a misclick by our opponent. Here we're going to start on the Moonshadow. Use Fabled Passage. We'll grow the Moonshadow. Think we need to get a black land here. That's our only choice. Then we can use Helping Hand on the Oculus. And we'll also use the Overlord. Should grow the Moonshadow as well. Between these two, probably take the Diviner. Hit for 2. Between these, we'll take the Moonshadow. Grows the other one. And now they have Overlord. The Shield Elf can wall one of these creatures, but we're going to have trouble with the lifelink. We have to take this. Opponent up to 28. We could put some minus counters on the Overlord using Emptiness, but that won't really slow them down much. I think we do start off there, though. Play out the Shield Elf. And then I think we have to hold on to our card here. We can hit in with the Oculus. Unfortunately, our opponent is just going to outscale us, and we only have 2 removal spells in our deck. Another elf is good. And if it was just the size of the creatures, it wouldn't be a problem, but the lifelink means that it's impossible for us to race our opponent. Mutagens normally cost 1 to activate, so now they can use all of these for free, and there's no point in continuing. On to the next. This hand, unfortunately, just won't do. This is better. We can keep, and we'll put back one of the Oculus. Turn 1, we need to fetch up our island. Bloodghast, also a good pickup. Great discard fodder for the Shield Elf. And our opponent is on some form of Walls deck here. Make sure to fetch. Then we'll play out the Swamp and the Looter. Pass the turn. Besieged by time, so they're going to have quite strong creatures here. Draw and discard. Get rid of an Oculus. Turn the Looter into the Oculus. Looks like our opponent might have some form of removal spell. What else does this do? So they're just going to run us over here on the play. Unfortunate. This hand is not bad. We'll keep. Hope to mill over something juicy with the Overlord. And we're up against an artifact deck. Start on the courtyard, pass the turn. Hopefully our opponent can't put too much pressure on. As I say that, they play out a haste creature. So we're already taking 4. Play out starting town, impend the Overlord. There's an Oculus and a Moonshadow. Do we want either? Guess it doesn't hurt to take the Moonshadow. Percussionist. Down to 9. This is the last turn we can use the starting town here. They do dem just quite a bit. Let's see if we helping hand here. We'll have 2 mana. Could use the Overlord again. Could try and flip into another Moonshadow. I think we do play out the plains as opposed to the starting town. And we will play the Moonshadow here. Souls of the Lost is a good pickup. So is the Shield Elf. I think we'll do the Shield Elf. Looks like they're going to burn out one of our creatures. They're deciding which one. And they cast a bargain. What did they flip into? This goes to any target, so it can go to our face. Hopefully they miss their land. They do not. So we're in a bit of trouble here. Instead they play out a Katana. Attack in with everyone. We'll chump. And I think we do the one that gives them additional bodies. Pizza will just kill us next turn. We don't have any way to gain life. We can bring something back with Emptiness. Play out a tapped courtyard. But our opponent's just going to win here. So a bit too slow again. On to the next. This hand is good. We'll keep. Start with a tapped Watery Grave. Do need to draw into another land so the looter can turn into the Oculus. And there it is. Our opponent with a good start as well. Llanowar Elves, best 1-drop this deck can play. And they follow up with a Balemurk Cub. And a second one, so they had the nut draw on their side of the battlefield. Don't think an Oculus is going to be fast enough here. Bloodghast and Helping Hand, not the best. Formidable Speaker will tutor up their win condition. I'd probably just grab an Ouroboros here. And will handedly win the game. They choose Mona Lisa instead. And a Soul Cauldron. That will start eating the cards out of our graveyard. Weakens our reanimation strategy. They take the Chrome Dome, so they're going to be looking to copy Mona Lisa. Let's see, what do we have here? If Mona Lisa chumps, they can give its ability to their other creatures. Hit a bunch of mana. I don't know if that necessarily beats us. We'll start with a Overlord here, see what we draw into. We'll try Emptiness. We don't have the other white though. We could kill one of their Badger Mole cubs. Probably our best play. Just try and choke them on mana. Surveillance, we'll tap down the Oculus. No attack. These are bad as well. Looked at a lot of cards with Oculus. Haven't found a good creature yet. Opponent doing some math. Another surveillance cam will untap Mona Lisa. Are they able to go infinite here? So they're just going to keep copying the cam. That's going to untap the elf. Don't know if they have enough. We'll wait to have them show us a loop. I know in the Legacy Painter decks, the surveillance cam is sending up 2 or 3 different infinite loops now. Seems like it might have been a design mistake that they didn't foresee. This will create an infinitely large Mona Lisa. They can also pump up the Badger Mole Cub and the Speaker once they get enough mana here. So they'll have 3 attackers of infinite size versus our 2 chump blockers. And really they only need to get them up to 16/16s, so it's probably not too bad to click through. Just going to fast forward until something meaningful happens here, or opponent kills us. And that'll do. Alright, so there you have the deck. And unfortunately, I have to say, this one seemed to fail to function. It was just way too slow compared to what other decks were doing. And even though we were putting some large creatures into play and had the potential to go wide with the Oculus, we were still getting run over by what our opponent was doing on their side of the battlefield. With Moonshadow in the deck, we tried to fill the deck with a lot of permanents that could grow the shadow. Therefore, we don't have a ton of interaction for what our opponent's doing. And if they were able to get a scaling threat into play, then even though we were putting in 5/5, 7/7s, 9/10s, eventually they were just going to have a larger creature, and there wasn't really anything we could do at that point. Didn't really get to double up our reanimated creatures using the Twilight Diviner. Likeness Looter, again, just felt too slow in the matchups. Getting an Oculus, even cheated into play on turn 3, was not powerful enough. Whether it was the matchups that we paired into today or just the overall meta of Standard right now, I can't give this one a recommendation. Could go back to the drawing board, try and redesign the deck. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.